Are you looking for an afternoon boost to support you until the children go to bed or to get through that evening meeting? Why not reach for a cup of ceremonial cacao? It will boost your energy, reduce your inflammation, and also allow you to go to sleep at a decent hour. For more information on how to grab your ceremonial cacao, check out the link in the show notes for 10% off.
Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Okay. Hey everyone, it's Catherine Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I'm joined by the beautiful Laura Hoorweg. She is a gifted spiritual counselor, intuitive coach, and psychic medium known for her uncanny accuracy, deep compassion, and soul level clarity. She helps those who feel stuck, lost, overwhelmed, or in transition reconnect with their purpose, release energetic baggage, and realign with who they truly are. Whether you're navigating a major life crossroads, healing from burnout, or craving a deeper connection to spirit, Laura offers a sacred space where emotional truth meets intuitive precision. Her approach is equal parts grounded and mystical, part therapist, part scene, part no bullshit soul whisperer. Laura sees straight through the surface, identifying root wounds and hidden beliefs with laser insight, then guiding you to clear, empowered next steps. Clients describe her as transformational, spot on, and the missing piece after years of therapy. She supports high functioning women, emerging healers, and deep feeling professionals who are ready to clear past life patterns, stop the cycle of self sacrifice, and finally rise into the life they were meant for. With over a decade of experience, Laura works one on one and in group settings, offering intuitive coaching, spiritual counseling, past life work, and energetic realignment. Her sessions blend warmth, directness, and divine truth, helping you rewrite your story from the inside out. Based in Greater Vancouver and working globally via Zoom, our favorite platform, Laura is here to guide you home to yourself. You are safe, but we're going deep, and I am excited to go deep with you today, Laura. So a big welcome to the show.
Thank you, and you did the long version of the
Wow,
bio, so that's
you wrote
that's
it, so people
yeah,
need to know.
I just put it out there and I let people pick and choose what they want, but I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it from beginning to end. But that's great because it's lots of cool information.
I feel very resonant with a lot of it because that's how I work with souls too. So I'm like, yeah, I get it. Share what we're going through on a deeper level because sometimes you need to know all the nitty gritty, and people's curiosity just sometimes isn't enough because people aren't courageous enough to follow their curiosity. Plus, we've had that whole curiosity killed the cat bought in, like drilled into us. Where it's like, no, curiosity guides your soul to the next step, right?
Never thought it. That's funny you brought that up. I've never thought about that saying, but that saying was really, I think that was one of the sayings that was initiated to keep us small,
Quiet.
questioning.
Yeah.
Keep us quiet, yeah. And I honestly, I probably think it was majorly directed at women, but that's another story.
Also, from a soul perspective, it's following your joy and curiosity that allows you to expand who you are. And so, exactly like you said, it's keeping us small.
Well, and not only to expand ourselves, but see, the problem is when we come in fully charged. We come in our authentic self. And then within a very short period of time between parents and school and cultures and religions, and we are told who we should be instead of we're brainwashed into who we should be instead of who we authentically are. I think that's one of the biggest pieces of my work that my guides in the last probably starting around the midpoint of last year, around middle of 2025, they became really adamant about working with people and just helping them discover their authentic selves because we can't do anything. We talk about this a lot, but I don't think a lot of times we think about it enough that we really can't be in our passion. We really can't be in our mission. We really can't know who we really are or what we really want or how we can help, what our service is to the world until we deeply accept and deeply know our authentic self. So I think that's why my group of guides, my kick-ass guides, because I'm a badass, no bullshit sayer. I have had so many expressions.
Yeah, I get. You have a no fluff approach, and I'm like, we don't have time for the
Oh, I
fluff.
get that too. Yeah. Well, it's really funny because I have really curly hair. In case you hadn't noticed, I have it up so you can't really see as much. But I have a standing saying that there's nothing fluffy about me except my hair. So, because people always make assumptions, when you're in the spiritual bent that it's all butterflies and unicorns and stuff like that. That is definitely not what I do. In fact, I even talk about my work when I never talk about readings because I see that word reading as basically an entertainment based thing. Okay. I've really converted people to talk about having a session with me. You're not having a reading. Because in every genre of work, there's things we don't like. And you'll never find me at a psychic fair or any such thing. And I'm not degrading that. And if you find that helpful or you find that entertaining or what, that's great. But that's really not what I'm about. I'm about really digging in and really helping people make their lives work. And that's the commitment I made when I took on this work. So I'm just not willing to kind of step into that kind of pseudo entertainment, telling people what they want to hear kind of thing. So yeah, so and my guides are like that. I have a kick-ass. Well, let me put it this way. I'm not a name dropper, but my chief guide and my chief gatekeeper is Archangel Michael,
Yeah.
who if you know anything about him, and he's a warrior angel, and it's really funny, but throughout my life, different people, different groups of people who have no connection whatsoever together. They all have one of my other nicknames is the Warrior Princess. So ever since I was very young. So, it's not a surprise to me when I found out that my lead guide, my head guy was Archangel Michael. That's the way I roll.
He was one of the first people I called in for protection after I met some of my early spirit guides. And then he's on my council at 12. So I'm like, oh, okay. But I am a little rebel, I guess, if you will. But I need to be.
Use the word little around me.
Well, it's funny because I find the people that come in my orbit, we're different levels of disruptors. That's what I like to think of us as, right? Because I just drop it as it is. And my husband's like, you can't do that. I'm like, why? And he's like, because people think you're crazy. I'm like, good, they can think I'm crazy. I said, but usually when I drop something, it's actually at their level of awareness that part of them knows it's true. And I said, and I've never had someone not think that. Whereas I have another friend and she's really good at just planting all these seeds and just challenging, and she does it in such a subtle way. And I didn't realize how good she was at it till I was having a treatment with someone. So she's a massage therapist. And in the room next to her, I was getting acupuncture and I heard her talking to one of her clients. And I was just laughing because I could hear all these things that she was disrupting. And I was like, you were the one that snuck behind enemy lines and was whispering to everybody to cause that disruption in what was happening. She goes, oh yeah, I think I did do that. So, and it's not we are at that energy that it needs to happen, right, Laura? Like people need to be challenged this false matrix and to be pulled into, actually, that's not who you are. And you don't have to be that way if you don't want to.
Well, it's really interesting because I'm a little bit older than you. I've been around for a while and I was a disruptor not only of the mainstream, but I also was in what used to be called the New Age. And I tell you, the old New Age kind of group, they kind of got as bad as what they said they got out of. Like they brought all this self-righteous, what I would call religiosity into new age thought. And they were always condemning religion and stuff like that. But they actually, I remember when I was young being told that, because when I was younger I smoked, And I had someone come right in my face and told me that I couldn't be at all spiritual because I smoked. I had somebody else come up to me and who found out that I wasn't a vegetarian or vegan. And again, I couldn't possibly be spiritual and I couldn't possibly be connected to anything because I wasn't a vegetarian because I ate meat. Stuff like that. And a lot of that, I said at the very beginning about the whole butterflies and unicorns type of thinking. And because I come from, well, I've been told many, many times, and I use it now. I tell people that I am the most grounded woo-woo person that you could ever possibly meet because that's what I believe. I believe it both in religion and spirituality. If your religion or your spirituality is not helping you in your everyday life, what the hell good is it? And that's why I think we've seen this huge exodus from the churches. And I'm not talking about any one, I'm talking about all the organized religions. It's because people just finally realized that it wasn't what they were getting there was not helping them with their everyday lives and was not making their lives better, which I think now I've seen some of that changing in different religions and different denominations, but it's still not nearly where it needs to be.
Well, a lot of it's fear-based as well. Like my
Mm,
son was talking about what's hell? Like, because he was asking, I said, oh, it's a made-up
yeah.
construct to keep us scared. And he's like,
Yes.
he goes, so what's a personal hell? I said, okay, that I believe. Yes. I said, that is when you put yourself in a place that you're continually beating yourself up for whatever reason. He goes, oh, because on
Right.
this game, their personal hell was being stuck on a treadmill all the time. And I was like,
Personal hell, yeah.
yes, that
Well,
is. Yeah.
yeah, because that one of my favorite phrases because I see people come into my orbit of every belief system that you could think of. Okay. So, I often get questioned about hell and things like that. And because I'm a medium also, I'm not just a psychic, I'm also a medium. So a lot of those kinds of questions come up. And I just tell people there is no hell. The only hell is the one you make for yourself right here.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's
And I use the word heaven. Because people can understand that construct a lot easier. But the one that I really use is home
yes.
because it's home. It's where we came from and where we're going to go back to, and it's the same place it's the same origin for everyone and everything, including a lot of animals. Not all animals. Well, I don't know that for sure, but the only animals that I have absolute clarity on that I've been given absolute evidence that actually go to the exact same place that we go to is all our pet animals. Okay, they end up literally when they pass on, they end up in the same place that we do. But interestingly enough, they have way more many lives. And I was talking about this before that movie came out. I was talking about it decades. The movie The Dog, or The Dog Story or something, where it's the basic premise that I've been talking about for eons. That dogs is the easiest example. That because dogs' lives are so much shorter than ours, they keep reincarnating into different forms so they can go back to their owners. And there's this, I think it was Disney or somebody like that, a couple of years ago just made a movie, and that was the exact premise of the movie. It was about this dog, and they followed this dog, how it reincarnated into the life of its previous owner time and time again, from the time he was a boy till the time he was an old man. And it was the same dog. It was just in different bodies, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. I think that's amazing. But I found out some other things about that too. There's some interesting things that animals can do.
It's interesting you bring up like what happens because I
Yeah.
had a client and he passed, and his wife said to me, because he was from I think it was a Hindu religion or something. I don't
Mhm.
understand what religion his family was. And they're like, said to hear, like his wife and his two young children, you can't keep any memories of him because that's keeping him trapped. And I was like, and she reaches out to me and she's like, is that true? And I'm like, nope, 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 nope. She's like, okay. And then we had to unpack this noise that she kept getting in because she felt so guilty
Yeah.
about wanting to honor her late husband a certain way. And we
Yeah.
had to keep unpacking it, but she has to keep things secret because she was like, I don't want all the wrath that comes from that, and the guilt and everything. I said, he's with you all the time. I was like, it's not, he's not suffering. He had to go. He was suffering in this life, but he had to go. It's just interesting how beliefs are placed onto people. And even
Like I said, every organized belief system has something in there like that. There's all these things that keep us feeling guilty and in fear, and we can't do this and we can't do that. And this is one reason why I just love doing my mediumship work, because I don't do things like there's a lot of evidentiary mediums, that what are called evidentiary mediums. These are the ones like you see on TV, and they love pumping out all these facts. And I'm not nixing them, because their major thing is that they want to help people realize that there's life after death. Honestly, I don't care if you believe in life after death, okay? Because it exists, okay? So my job, the pact that I made, is I have both a responsibility to living and a responsibility to the people on the other side as a medium. And they're different responsibilities. Responsibility for the people that are left here is to show them that their loved ones are actually energetically closer to them now that they've passed than they ever were when they were in body. And to the people on the other side, I have a responsibility of delivering their healing messages. That's the whole point of my mediumship, is delivering those healing messages so that those grieving people can heal and go on and get on with their life.
yeah,
That's what I do with my mediumship.
which is such a beautiful contrast. And thank you for sharing that, Laura, because it's so important that people understand that too. And I always say, you can't make this shit up. You can't.
Oh my God, I can't, but yeah, this is really wild. I use that expression all the time. This is really quite funny.
Well,
I've never heard anybody say it until you,
me.
except for me, right? I go, I can't, I used to say it all the time. I can't make this shit up.
And even things that happen like coincidences or symbols that I'm like, I couldn't orchestrate this, if I tried, or if, and my logical husband would try and explain things away. And I was like, how do you explain that? And he's like, I
Uh,
can't. And I was like, no, you can't. You can't. So,
Well, they're just, I don't even mess around anymore. I just tell people there's no such thing as accidents, and there's no such thing as coincidences. The only thing there is synchronicity, and that's an energetic bridge bringing things together, whatever it might happen to be, for a reason, for a higher reason. And those things can be what we would consider good, and they also can be what we consider to be not so good. But every time a synchronicity happens, whether we're judging it as positive or negative, it's always positive, because it's always something that is helping us to move forward. It's part of evolution. And that's why we're here in Schoolhouse Earth. The whole point we're here is to evolve our souls. It doesn't have anything to do with anything else. Like, we're not here to become, we're here to help our souls evolve, and also to help others evolve, because that's the kind of contracts that we set. And I don't really like the word contracts. I often use the word agreements. The agreements we set with people, because contract sounds too, because you can actually make a contract with somebody on the other side. And I'm talking, in case people don't realize what I'm talking about, we make all kinds of contracts and agreements with other souls before we land here. And I'm talking about, the souls that we're going to have as children, parents, and spouses, sometimes even bosses, often friends, and spouses for sure, sometimes multiples. But, that's a whole nother topic. We can get into that if you want. A lot of people have a hard time. Not every relation, let me say, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a family relationship, or whether it's a romantic relationship, not every relationship was meant to last forever. In fact, very few were. They're basically, we're only supposed to be in them until we learn what we needed to learn from that relationship, and then it's done. And really, what we have to learn is we have to learn to make what I call conscious disconnections. Okay. And a conscious disconnection is not when you have such animosity and hatred when you're leaving a relationship. And it can be any kind of relationship. Okay. It's not just romantic relationships. It's leaving the relationship knowing that, oh, maybe a lot of parts of that relationship weren't so great, but I've grown from them, and I realize now that the need for that relationship is over, and I go forward, and the other person goes forward, not to wish that they would, get run over by a Mack truck or these kinds of things. So yeah, that's the hardest part, seeing the it's just like when things, when we go adults and bad things happen to adults, that's kind of one thing. But the hardest thing, I think, to take that higher spiritual view is when things happen to children. Because it's very hard to take that, because everybody thinks, oh, they're innocent children and blah, 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 blah. But we have to realize that they are also evolving souls. And even a lot of children that come here for a very short period of time and die at a very, very young age, they were aware that's what was going to happen to them before they got here. And they did it for a specific reason. 99% of the time, this is what I love about being a medium, because I get a lot of confirmation and evidence from the people on the other side. But you can notice this if you really start to notice, if you've ever been around a child or heard about a child that passed away very young, like some child that gets leukemia or cancer or something and dies very, very young. If you look around them after they pass, okay, I'm talking about all the doctors and nurses, I'm talking about their family, I'm talking about their parents, their friends, you will see that that child, even though that child was so young, had this incredible impact and incredible effect on all the people around them. And if they hadn't gone through that early illness and death, they would not have been able to help all those people. So the light that those little angels bring into the world, even though they're here for such a short, short time, it is just miraculous how many people that they touch their lives in a very, very positive way. Like everybody always looks at it as so negative, that child is so innocent, didn't have a chance, and all this stuff. But when you see some of that, you really look and you see the miracles that happen around a passing of a child like that. I'm not saying it's not incredibly difficult, but it really is a miracle if you look at what happens to all the people around that child.
Yeah.
So,
It's about finding the blessing, right?
yes, absolutely. There's so many blessings, and there's multiple blessings, but often, especially if you're a parent losing a child, it's a very, very, I can't imagine. I think I've lost a partner. But I think, and that was hard enough, but I think losing a child would be even more difficult because of the fact that parents, there's just this automatic thing that, you always think that your children are going to live you and not the other way around. So that would be very, very difficult.
Yeah, even if you miscarriage, because I've gone through that. So even if you miscarriage,
Yes,
be
yes.
and
Yeah. Devastating.
yeah, but at the same time, I was so sick during that pregnancy, whereas when I fell pregnant with my son, I was fine. Like there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like it was just, and then my naturopath just said it was a preparation. It was like clearing things out and getting things
Yeah.
ready so that you could have this beautiful
Well, I'm going to tell you too, and this is one thing that I love about the mediumship work, because it has all these unbelievable happenings, that it was dealing with women like yourself who have had miscarriages or women who've had abortions. Because in both states, I've found that women can be carrying so much guilt and fear and judgment, and when they realize that, because they think they've killed a soul. Okay, that doesn't happen, okay? Because the soul is not attached to the body until that child takes its first breath. This is why in so many holy scriptures, including the Bible, by the way, there's such an emphasis on the breath. because even during pregnancy, the soul is in and out of the body continuously all the way through the pregnancy until that point of birth, however that baby gets out of the body. Okay. There's various methods now. Once that first breath is taken, that's when the soul permanently attaches to the body and not before. So when you have a miscarriage or if you had an abortion, that body dies, but the soul just goes back and sits there and waits for another opportunity to come in. And I've seen through doing sessions with people too, that often when a woman has had a miscarriage and sometimes even an abortion, that soul comes back to them as through another pregnancy as their child. And it's pretty wild to see when those things happen.
Which is so interesting. And then, okay, this saying just keeps popping in my head, so I feel to share it,
Oh, here we go again.
which is that people come into your life and souls come into your life for a reason, a season, a cycle, or a lifetime.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of people can't accept that. Like when people disappear or friends disappear or, opportunities go, it's like, well, it wasn't meant to happen. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, and I can see I've been going through this for like over a year with our house and all these sort of things. I now understand why we had to wait. And it's very, very good reasons. And but when you're in the thick of it, you're like, why? And at the same time, it's that acceptance and surrendering. That's what my lesson is. Trust and surrender. That's my big concept.
Yeah, that surrender one I often have difficulty with, but I've gotten better at it because the more years that go by, the more experiences you have. I've recently been going through another thing that's always very hard for me. I just really realized, I think you talked about people leaving your life. One of the hardest things that I've ever experienced is when I come to the knowing that I have to say goodbye to somebody. Somebody is no longer serving my life, and often usually I'm no longer serving theirs in some way. But when you're the one that has to say, I'm sorry. I recently just had to let go of a 10-year friendship because I realized that it was becoming toxic and it wasn't any good for me. And it was a drain on my energy, and I wasn't helping this other person anymore because I was enabling them instead of helping them. So you really have to realize when those things happen, and you have to be able to let go of them. But it's very hard. And I tell you, you get judged by a lot of people because when certain people find out about things, they'll go, how could you do that? You're a bad person, blah, 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 blah. And no matter how much you try to explain, so I don't even try to explain usually, depending on who it is anymore. Because there's some people who just aren't, you can't make somebody hear something that they're not ready to hear. And I know when that happens now, because I used to beat myself to death trying to do that. And I just know now when there's no possibility that somebody's going to receive something, I just don't even bother wasting my energy anymore.
Yeah. It's like, usually it's with family too, right? So for example,
that often, yeah.
You might
that often, yeah.
Especially being intuitive and psychic, I'll be like, you need this. Like, why don't you have this? Or like, why don't you try this? And it's only when someone else outside of you says the same thing that they'll go and do it. And a lot of people go, why didn't they listen to me? It's like, well, you were planting the seed. Someone else just had to get it to sprout, like it's just, and why there was the other aspect that they're saying to bring up is that why expect something more from somebody when you know they're not capable of that expectation?
Well, that's an interesting, yes. Yeah, that's a big one. But what I've found to be really difficult is because when you are psychic and when you can read energy and when you can see into people, I can look at somebody and I can see their potential. Okay. So my greatest thing is judging people by their potential instead of by their actions. And what happened, just because somebody has the potential doesn't mean they're ever going to rise to that potential. Okay. And I've been very, very, and we're talking about friends, we're talking about romantic relationships, we're talking about family. Okay. We're talking about everybody you come in contact with. And it's very, very difficult to admit to yourself when you can actually see their potential and you're just like, oh my God, if they would just, if they would just grab onto who they really are, what a incredible relationship we could have, whatever type of relationship you're looking for, right? And that for me has been my greatest challenge is to let go and separate, to see people and realize that I have to judge them by, not judge isn't the right word. I have to see them
Accept
as
them.
who they really accept them as who they really are instead of the potential that I see that they could be, because there is no guarantee whatsoever. And actually, to be honest, now that I've spent so many years looking at all these people, honestly, and I think this is something that's going to change. So I'm glad about that. But for decades and decades and hundreds of years, I think people have very rarely lived up to their potential within them. And that's because we've been so separated from our authentic selves and we've been so fear-based and so held down and all the things that we could talk about for hours. But thankfully, I think very slowly that is changing. And I think there's going to be a quantum leap in that pretty quickly. That's what I've been shown. That's part of, everybody keeps talking about this quantum leap in human evolution. And I think that's going to be a huge part of it is when people can actually recognize their own potential and start activating that.
Yeah, and I feel too like stepping into the year of the fire horse out of the snake where we've been shedding so much.
Oh, yes. Now we're galloping.
Yeah. I said to someone the other day, I was messaging them and it just came through and it was like, if you actually don't get out of your own way, the horse is going to gallop right over you. So this is truly.
Oh, yeah.
So either get on top of the horse or you're going to be dragged behind and it's not going to be a pleasant journey.
Well, and not only that, but because it is the fire horse, okay? If you're galloping along, if you see those pictures, right, all the flames are going behind the horse because the horse is running, right? Well, if you're sitting still on the horse, guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to get frickin' barbecued.
Mhm.
Because all the flames are going to come straight up. They're not going to be shooting out the back. They're going to barbecue you where you sit. So I think a lot of people, and I've already seen it starting to happen, and we're only like a few weeks into the fire horse year. If you're not moving forward, you're going to be barbecued. That's all there is to it. There's no like, because in the year of the snake, you know how if you've ever seen a snake lose their skin, it's
Yeah.
a long, slow process. And the snake actually lies in one place and it sort of shimmies out of its skin. Well, that's not fire horse energy at all. So I think so. I think again, some people are going to be in for a rude awakening. But again, I think, and also on a world, it's also happening in case you haven't noticed, on the world stage. And there's a lot of things that look really dark, and there's huge amount of fear in the mass consciousness right now. But the thing that keeps me going is knowing, because I know what's going to come on the other side of it. It's really, I've been shown a lot of it in the sense that I know that it's going to be incredibly positive and incredibly growth enabling. Okay. Because we still, I don't know, I've been shown that after the year of 2030, things are a little foggy. Okay. And the reason things are foggy, I've been shown over and over again, is because it's like this is the path that we're on now. And it's like my wrist is 30-30. And then after 30-30, there's like all these different paths. And it's not that any of them are bad. This is what I've been shown. They're all great. But the thing is, which path we take is based on mass consciousness, what we decide as the majority of the people that decide. And we're not all going to decide the same path, by the way. There's probably going to be at least two paths. There's the one of people moving forward, and then there's just the one of people who have decided they're not ready for it yet. This is where the two earth things come from.
The 3D and the 5D.
Yeah, there's not really to physical Earth in the sense. It's talking about dimensional and energetic. There's going to be, and for a while, I've been shown that they sit side by side, and we can kind of bounce back and forth. But as time goes on, those two dimensional, they've moved further and further apart, and then the jumping back and forth is no longer going to be, it's no longer going to be possible. So, we're going to have to make, a lot of people are going to have to make decisions fairly quickly, but you'll be surprised. This is Michael's chiming in. The people that you thought would make really quick, really definite decisions, people who have already been in an awakening cycle for a long time, some of those people are the people that are going to get the most stuck. And some of the people that we would just call them asleep, that they're totally basically unaware of any of this stuff. They're going to have wake ups like this, and they're the ones that are they're going to be some of the ones that dive forward and accept all this new energy. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And it's not going to, my guides keep emphasizing it's not going to happen in the way that we would think it would. And when I say we, I'm talking about the people who have been on an awakening journey for some time.
I had this really pathetic dream, and I had to go to the city for something, and it was all this symbolism. But I had to go put something in a bank, but there's only one bank that did it, so I had to go to the city, and it was just all like grey. But I was this one color beacon in the grey, like I was in color, and everyone else was just black and white and
In
grey.
black and white.
Yeah. And then once I did what I needed to do, I went to go leave again and I went, no, I need to go sit in the park and sit under the tree. And then I just started doing this pulsing thing. And then this person I used to know came and sat next to me and he's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm just being me. What are you talking about? Because you're causing this. And it was shaking me. And then all around this color started to come back. And for me, right? And for me, I feel that that's what our roles are when we are awake, is to sit there and just shine our light and let it usurp around us. Let it leak out, let it land where it needs to land. And if people choose to step into the color, they will, or they can stay in the black and white, because we always have divine will and free will no matter what. Yeah.
I like the color version. 'Cause most of the times I hear that story as black and white, like being the lighthouse and being the dark. And I like the color. But I'm going to say, I don't think it's black and white. I think it's sepia. You know what sepia
Yes,
is?
that's exactly how to describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old school photos with the
With the
grain. And that's
yeah.
kind of what the image was, when they brought color in, like it was that's exactly what my dream was
Well,
like.
what they used to do originally, God, I have all this useless knowledge in my head. Well, it's not useless. It always has. It's the old sepia photographs when they first started taking the photographs. Okay, they would take those old sepia photographs and they would have an artist, and the artist would draw in color before they had. And that's how you got those little miniatures and stuff. If you've ever seen an old movie and they have the little miniatures, that's how they created them. They actually took a photograph with the old ancient cameras, and they came up with this sepia photograph. And then they would have an artist, and they would sit there and with tiny brushes and color in the colors, and then they would create those little pictures. And yeah, that's how it used to work.
Which is like that's a perfect analogy, because it's like you're adding
Yeah.
color into the lives. So anyway, that was a very interesting dream I had. And I was like, my goodness, like but it felt so real.
Be reminding me of that. I haven't had that dream for ages.
I don't know. I just got told to share it. So I trust that. Look at this. This is
Okay,
for
I'm just
anyone.
doing it.
I was
This
going
is
to say
pretty weird. This wasn't actually a dream. This was a nightmare that I used to have when I was a child. And I was in our house, and it was in the middle of the night, and it was dark in the house. And I was hiding. I kept trying to find a hiding spot. And then I realized there was a lion chasing me. I just realized what this is about. Haven't thought about this since I was a kid. And I had it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And I was hiding in cupboards. I was hiding under the bed. And every time I would Like if I was hiding under the bed, and then the lion would stick its head under, would see me, so I'd have to run and had to have to find a new hiding place. But it was a house. So whenever you see a house in a dream, I've learned this is house is about your different states of consciousness. It's a very psychological thing. The basement is like your subconscious, and then the house is like your regular consciousness, and then the attic is like your super consciousness. So I don't know why. Maybe somebody out there listening to this is going to has had a similar dream about the lions. I know what it means in my life, but it obviously has a greater meaning.
It's funny you brought up dreams. Well, I brought up dreams because my
You
son.
brought up three.
I brought up dreams. My son had this scary dream the other night, and he wouldn't tell me what it was. And we tell like this make-up story every night and call it Super Chicken. Anyway, so Super Chicken does all these different life lessons, right? So Super Chicken was having bad dreams. And I said, so he had a dream about this. He goes, nah, Mum, that wasn't what my dream was about, because he knew what I was doing. And then I said, oh, all the people he loves were taken. He goes, how did you know that? And I was like, okay, here we go. So then in this dream, he felt he had to save us. He came here to save
Yeah.
us. And I went, I appreciate you saving us, but you don't need to do that with me and Dad. And as soon as I said that, you could just see this relief shift off him. And it was, but that's what he believed he had to do in his subconscious. So when people tell me they don't dream, first of all, I just laugh. I'm like, no, it's just
Yeah.
you don't
You
remember.
just don't remember.
And then the other part is pay attention to the symbolism, because what you remember, but also write it as soon as you wake up, because if you don't do that,
What I've also been guided to is we often get hung up on the symbols. Okay. And my guys always say over and over again, it's actually more than worrying about the symbols. It's remembering what you want to write down is what your emotional state is right when you wake up. Because they say that the emotions will tell you more than the actual pictures will. Because there's all kinds of dream books, and they talk about all these, this is supposed to mean this and that's supposed to mean that. Yeah and no, because everybody's different, right?
yeah.
But they said that the biggest key to really finding out what your dream is about is by diving into how you felt in the dream. Like, what emotional state were you in? And maybe this is why I had to bring up the lion thing. The lion thing. Well, and yours too, your son's dream. The lion thing getting chased, that was totally about fear and not feeling safe and having to run and hide all the time. Like, that is just so obvious. The lion symbolism is something else that I'm not going to get into. But with your son, this is a very common thing with children, with small children, especially younger children, is they feel responsible for protecting their parents. Now, there is also, I'm going to tell you this right now, it's a good thing the way you handled it and telling me he wasn't, but also that might have been part of his mission coming in. You have to realize that, okay? Of at some point, not now, not when he's a child, but I think later in life, in some form, he will be your protector.
He's a little sage, so I know he's here to defend things. And I know that. And we know that. And, but it's getting him to discern when he feels like he needs to stick up for us versus when he doesn't need to do that too.
Yeah.
And this is like the contrast. My husband and I are trying to teach him that you don't always have to agree with us if it, you trust what you feel. Don't start agreeing with us just because we're your parents. Actually agree with us because you feel it's true too. And for parents to say that to their kids, like, it's, I know we're dismantling a lot of things here, but it's just.
This is another beautiful thing that you just keep bringing up these things that they keep going. Another beautiful thing that I feel coming and that I've been shown is that the way that we parent children right now is just really bad. Okay, it's just really bad. Even the best parents today, okay, the best people that have their shit together, we're still not raising children the way that we need to raise them. And that is a huge thing that's going to change. Sort of after this quantum leap is the way we raise children. Because the reason we're having so many problems on Earth is because we have all these adults that were raised by all these children who didn't know how to raise children. Way back, there were traditions and things put into place. You used to hear things about, and a lot of the indigenous cultures, it takes a village to raise a child and all those kinds of things. Well, none of those kinds of things are available anymore to most people. Okay. And this is why children are growing up to be hideous adults, because they weren't, no bullshit, right? Hideous adults because they were so poorly raised and they weren't given the skills or the knowledge to live an adult life. And the reason there's so many absolute idiot adults out there, it's because literally they are small children in big bodies and they don't have a clue how to be an adult because they were never, and it's not their fault. It's because they were never really taught how to be an adult. They weren't given the right tools. They weren't given the right foundation. So now they find themselves as an adult in an adult body with none of the skills, aptitudes, or energies, very important, energies in order to be a full functioning adult.
And they don't get taught emotional regulation. They don't get taught how to
They
be a
don't get
decent
anything.
human. They don't
No.
get,
They don't get taught. One of the biggest things that none of us ever gets taught is the fact that we are divine just because we're here. Okay. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to say anything. We don't have to look a certain way. We don't have to have a certain job. We are divine just because we are here. And that's probably the biggest one, because everybody's always striving to prove themselves or to get this or to get that or to get, and they still feel that they're not worthy. The lack of worthiness. Okay. The lack of self-worth is probably the most biggest epidemic in this world. And I don't care what culture, what gender, what sexual orientation, whatever, what color you are, if you're purple with pink polka dots, I don't care. Everybody has the same problem, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And changing that one thing will make the greatest change in our whole, in humanity, in the human race, that's happened in thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
I love that you just pre-answered my last question, which is if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
That's what it is. Because the moment, I tell you, the moment everybody realizes that they are absolutely worthy and good enough just because they're here, is the moment when everything will change. Because every ill in this world, in this society, in this human race comes out of that root. Every single problem, every single thing, even disease, physical, mental, emotional disease, all of that comes out of that lack of worthiness and feeling not good enough.
Yeah.
And it's generation after generation, and it doesn't get better. It usually just gets worse. Well, no, but really, you've got totally unworthy people who think they're unworthy, who are trying to raise children and make them feel worthy. Well, how the hell are they going to do that? If you don't feel like you're worth anything, how the heck are you going to convince your child? Because children, people think children learn by what we tell them. It doesn't really matter. You could be totally silent and never tell your child anything. Children, and I'm serious, children learn through you modeling and through life experience. They don't learn by what you say, they learn by what you do. And if anybody knows this, it's me. Because I grew up with a mother. Oh my God, she said everything right. She always had the right comment for everything. But she would do the exact opposite. Oh no, seriously, she would tell you something point blank and it would be absolute truth. And then 5 minutes later, she'd turn around and she'd do exactly the opposite. And that happened. And this is what's wrong. Okay. Because children don't learn by what we say. They learn by what we do.
Yep. And they also little emotional radars. So if you're saying one thing and you're feeling something else, they can pick it up. Like
Oh, of
it's,
course they can, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And I laugh at these people, people who talk about, I once heard a divorce lawyer say this, he was talking about what was the best, is there a best age for children for their parents to get divorced where it would cause the least amount of disruption, right? And he's going on about, oh, it's much better if the children are younger because they really don't get it and blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. You don't know anything about children. Because actually, younger children under the age of, I was going to say 5, they just corrected me, 7, actually pick up way more stuff than, kids are in their preteens or teens because they're just little radar magnets and they haven't had it beaten out of them yet. Like you just said, they read energy, they read emotions, and a 2-year-old can tell exactly what's going on in the family and what the relationship is between his or her mother and father way more than a 14-year-old could. I can tell you that right now. So this whole fallacy of, oh yeah, it's better if you're going to get divorced, it's better if you do it when your kids are young and it won't have, oh my God, are you kidding me? No.
And how the divorce is treated between the parents is interesting too, because I've seen some
Oh yes.
beautiful examples of actually
Yeah.
we just weren't good together, but we're beautiful co-parents and we respect each other fully.
Yes.
But I hate him and I'm not being in
Yeah.
the same room and
She's
it's
evil and she's a lying bitch and oh my God, some of the things I've seen. But this is what I was talking about. This you just loop back to what I was talking about, conscious
yes,
uncoupling.
yes,
Okay? Because
yes.
that is more important. Actually, Michael, I love Michael. He's like, how you leave a relationship is actually more important than how you get into one. Oh, I love that. I gotta stamp that somewhere. Yeah. So how you leave a relationship is actually way more important than how you get into one. And all this stuff we're talking about, these interpersonal relationships, all this stuff is transposable to relationships between countries.
Yeah.
Okay. The relationships between governments, the relationships between religions, relationships between cultures. It's all the same thing. And the problem is when the root, because I consider our interpersonal relationships to be the roots of all other relationships that are experienced in the world. So if we don't have our relationships and our personal relationships in order, how could we ever possibly expect the relationships between different cultures, different countries, different religions to work out if we don't even have solid personal relationships?
Foundations. Yeah.
Yeah, foundation, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And Laura, if people want to come and find you and connect with you, where can they come?
Well, the best place to connect with me is probably through my website at www.spiritspeaks2, the number 2, .me. And I know that lovely Catherine will have all my links in the show notes. Or you can email me directly, and that's really easy. It's just Laura Hoorweg at gmail.com.
Beautiful. And I will
And
definitely put that in.
well, we've spent lot of different things, but I do 3 different things just to give the short snapshot. I do one-on-one spiritual counseling. I also do one-on-one life coaching, which I have a program called Create the Life That You Really Want. Imagine that. And then, of course, we talked quite a bit about my mediumship work, and that's the only one that I really do in person. And so that's only locally here in the Greater Vancouver area. But everything else I do via Zoom. So I have clients all over the world, and I have interviews all over the world. Now I've gone to Australia.
Here we are.
I love.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Laura, and thank you for sharing all your insights. And I love that we could bounce off each other because we've had similar
Yeah, it's
things
been
come
great.
through, which is very cool. So thank you again.
Well, I tell you, if you're willing, because they just brought this up, we can always do at some point. We can always do a Laura 2.0 and a Willow 2.0 because it's Like I always say to my clients, there's only so much you can, there's only so much you can get to in an hour.
100%.
But awesome. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
My virtual obsession, my romantic thriller, is now available on Amazon and other online retailers. This book explores the intersection of loneliness, love, and how chasing perfection through technology can lead to fantasy and reality colliding. My virtual obsession out now.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.